liebe Freunde und Zuschauer und willkommen bei German for English Speakers. My name is Ruben and I'm the author of German for English Speakers, a book written for people who speak English either as their first language or a foreign language, who would like to learn German. As this is my first video and I'd like to provide a little bit of a background to myself and what my goals are for this channel. If you're here specifically for the lesson on the alphabet and German phonics, feel free to skip ahead to that part if you wish. Yeah, like I said, my name is Ruben. I'm originally from Northern Ireland and I started teaching myself German at the age of 15. After a couple of years, I went to university and I studied German there as my major. And I went on to do a master's in teaching. With the collective knowledge of learning German as a foreign speaker, as an English speaker, and teaching German for many years now to predominantly English speakers, I've learned what really works well for us as English speakers, what helps us get us through that sometimes terrible process of trying to learn German. I've found what works and what doesn't work and where we can link things up. My particular approach to teaching German grammar, which is what my book focuses on, is using what you already know in English to help you understand what you need to do in German, grammar-wise. Very often, although unfortunately not always, the German language and the English language link up for many parts of grammar. So the things that you already do every day when you speak English are things that you can learn to do in German quite easily by tapping into the knowledge that you already have. And I must say, as an English speaker, you've already done some of the work towards learning German just by being able to speak English. German and English share an ancestor language and come from the same root, so there's a lot of similarities between the two. As for my channel, what I'm planning to do is to try to go through each of the units of my book in some detail so that I can present those bits of grammar in hopefully a new light. Of course, in the book, there are more detailed explanations and more grammar activities if you would like to practice those things a little bit further. As for the YouTube videos, I will be doing my best to provide some materials, some exercises that we'll do in the videos, and hopefully you'll find it quite useful. Some other ideas that I had for the channel are perhaps doing some book reviews where I talk about books that I've read in German and provide some listening activities for you to take a look at. But we have to see how all this is going to go. And yeah, so for me, I have a lot of aspirations for this channel, and I hope that it will resonate with you and it will help you on your journey to learning German. So thanks very much for watching the video, and let's get started taking a look at the alphabet and the sounds of the German language. Los geht's. Okay then, let's take a look at the alphabet. So what I've done here is I've written out each of the letters of the German alphabet, and underneath I've written down a kind of English phonetic pronunciation of each of them. So what we're doing here is we're actually going to say the letters as if we were spelling something in German, the same way we would say the letters in English if we were spelling something like A, B, C, and so on. When we come across any letters or anything a little bit unusual, we'll talk about them, and we'll also take a look at those letters that are different from English letters in their pronunciation as well at the end after we go through the alphabet. So starting up at the top, we have A, A. The letter A in German, A, is pronounced as its long form when we're spelling A. All vowels in German have long and short forms. So A can either be A or A or A. Next one, we have B, B. And the letter B, or B in German, is pronounced the same as it is in English, more or less. Next we have Z. Z. Note the first sort of sound of this letter. I've written it down with English pronunciation as TS. Z. Z. So it's almost like a very sharp Z sound. Imagine you have the word cat, C-A-T, and then there's more than one cat, so you have C-A-T-S. And that T-S at the end, cats, that sound right at the end, is how we start with this letter, C. And while the letter C is rarely used on its own in German, it's usually used in combination with H or with SCH. It's still important that you master this z sound because it's going to be used a lot in German with the German letter Z. Next up, we have D. D. The letter D in German, D, is pronounced basically the same as it is in English if it's at the start of a word. If it's at the end of a word, sometimes it takes on a harder sound. So if you imagine the word gold, G-O-L-D, in German the spelling is the same, G-O-L-D, G-O-L-D, but it's not pronounced gold, it's gold. So you hear the D at the end is a little bit harder. Gold, gold. Almost like a T. Next after D, we have A. A. A is the German version of E. A. And that's also in its long form, just like the letter A was. It can come in a shorter variety, E, A, E, A. Two versions of the same one. Then we have the letter F. F. And F is pronounced basically the same as it is in English, so nothing to worry about there. Following that, we have G. G. The letter G is pronounced a little differently to English. So in English, we have a few different pronunciations for the letter G. But in German, the pronunciation of G is always hard. That means it always makes a G sound. G, G, G. The word for enough in German is genug. Genug, which starts with a G and ends in a G. Genug. But you might notice that G on the end of the word I'm saying, genug, sounds like a K. So when G comes at the end of a word, it takes on a slightly sharper form, more of a k sound. Or even the word for day in German is Tag. Tag. Sounds a little bit harder than tag, like in English. Tag. Next up, we have ha. Ha. Letter H is pronounced basically the same as it is in English as well when it's used in a word, so that's fine. Then we come to E. E. And this is the letter I in German. E. And that's the sound that it makes in its long form. E. In its short form, it's more like and E. Followed by that, we have J. J. J is the German version of J, and this is always soft. So in English, J makes a J sound. This is not the case in German. We don't have that J sound. Instead, we have Y, Y, like our letter Y. And an example of a word would be the word for yes in German, which is Ja, Ja, spelled J-A, Ja, J-A, Ja. Moving on, we have Ka, Ka. And Ka, or K, is pronounced the same in both languages. Then L, L. Letter L, again, same in both languages. M, M. M, same in both languages. N, N. Again, same in both languages. So far so good on this row, not too difficult. Next we come to O, O. This is the long version of O. It has a short version as well. O and O. O and O. Again, remember all the vowels have long and short versions, so we need to keep on top of that. Usually you can recognize if a vowel, well, I say usually, sometimes you can recognize if a vowel is going to be long because it will be followed by the letter H. So if an H comes after a vowel, it tells you to make it longer. And we'll see that in some example words later. On to the next line, we come to P. P. The letter P in German is pronounced the same as it is in English. P, P, makes a P sound. Next up, we have Q. Q. This is Q in German, and Q, the pronunciation, is the same as the animal cow in German. Q, Q. Just like in English, the letter Q is always followed by a U, unless it's in some sort of foreign language word. It will always be followed by a U. And in English, we would pronounce that qua, like KW, but in German, it's pronounced kv, KV instead, kv. The next letter is one of the ones that causes the most trouble for English speakers when speaking German, because the pronunciation of the letter R in German is just so different to how it is in English. If we're spelling a word with R in it, then we would call this letter er, er. Now, the actual pronunciation of the letter R when it's in a word depends on the dialect of German being spoken. But in standard German, when to pronounce a word with the letter R, it's made with this sound. R, 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 r. What I'm doing there is I'm starting right at the back of my throat with almost like an H sound. Ha, ha. And then I'm letting that roll through the top of my throat. R, r, r. And while I'm doing that, the little bit that hangs down in the back of your throat, your uvula, is getting rattled about. And that's what creates that like a rolling sound. And that's the German R. So what you're doing is actually undulating your uvula, which sounds rather beautiful, don't you think? Okay. You may need to practice that one several times, but it is really important to get it down because there's nothing worse than hearing someone speak German using the English R instead of the R. Next up, we have S. S. Letter S in German is basically the same as it is in English. However, if a word starts with an S, it makes more of what we would pronounce as a Z. So, for example, the word for sun, as in the sun in the sky in German, is Sonne, Sonne, z, 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 Sonne. So you can hear it's more of a Z rather than a S. Sonne, Sonne. Following that, we have T. T. Letter T is pronounced the same in English and in German. Following that, we have U. U. This is the long vowel pronunciation for U. U. Short version would be more like U. 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 After U, we come to vowel. Vowel. Vowel, the letter V in German, is pronounced like an F in English. So it's not voiced, to use phonetic terms. In other words, instead of v, you're saying. So there's no vibrating of your vocal cords. And if you want to check this, you can put your hand around your throat. And when you say the letter V in English, v, v, you can feel your throat vibrating. When you say the letter F, 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 there's no vibration in your throat. And that's the pronunciation that you want here for the letter V in German. F. After vowel, we come to V. V. And I think all English speakers know that W in German is pronounced like a V in English. Where are you going? What are you doing? To use those nice stereotypical accents there, right? So V makes a V sound in English. Then we come to X. X. Now, X, much like the letter X in English, is almost never going to be used unless you're using a foreign loanword or a word that's from Greek or something like that. Otherwise, the only word I can think of off the top of my head was X. Xylophone, which is xylophone in English. And that's Greek, isn't it? So, yeah, there's no... You probably won't use the letter X all that much when it comes to German. After X, we have Y, which is the letter Y in German. Y. So the letter Y is used in German mostly as a vowel. And when it is used as a vowel, it's a little bit similar to the letter U. Typ, T-O-Y-P, means a guy or a dude. Typ makes an U noise when it's being used as a vowel. Next row, next letter, Z. Z. This is the ts sound that I was talking about earlier when we got to the letter C. Z. Z. Very important that you get this one down because Z is used a lot in German. Can come at the start of words, middle of words, end of words, basically anywhere. So this ts sound is very important. Practice it. Okay, now we come to the letters that scare all the English speakers, because in our language we don't use accents for anything. We never have little lines going up over our vowels. There are never any little dots. And then when we see them, we get a little bit scared and say, I don't know how to pronounce it. However, these letters are not so scary and not so difficult to pronounce. Not nearly as difficult as you might think they are. The first one is eh. 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 This actually sounds very similar to the letter E when it's pronounced in German. So when it's pronounced, you get eh, eh, and this is eh. Basically, what you're doing to form this letter is you're stretching the corners of your mouth nice and wide. So you're making a wide mouth, and then still trying to say like the letter A at the same time. Eh, eh. And once you get the hang of it, it's really not so tricky to repeat it. Eh. However, I should say, if you're spelling something and you want to tell someone it's this letter, normally you would say something like A mit Umlaut if we were spelling the letter. A mit Umlaut. Okay, so for these these three in the middle, these are actually the sounds they make rather than what we would say if we were spelling them. The one next to A mit Umlaut would be O mit Umlaut, and then the next one would be U mit Umlaut if we were spelling things. Okay, so after E, we come to Ö. Ö. The best way to pronounce Ö, I feel, is you can either start with A and then move the corners of your lips in a little bit, keeping the top and bottom the same. Ö. Ö. Or you can think of, you have a polo mint, and you want to hold on to that polo mint with your lips. So you need to make a big hole, kind of like the letter itself. Imagine your mouth is a bit like that. So you're making your lips into a circle. And that's the pronunciation there. The next one, grab your polo mint again. And this time, instead of holding the whole polo mint in your lips, you want to imitate the polo mint. You want your lips to make the size of the little hole in the middle of the polo mint. Ooh, 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 ooh. Yeah. So we're bringing our lips in really close, almost like we're going to give someone a kiss, but there's a little hole just in the middle. Ooh, ooh. So if you watch what happens when you move from A mit Umlaut down to U mit Umlaut, what I'm actually doing is I'm moving my mouth from big to small. So it might help if you watch me. I'll say the three umlaut letters again, twice each. And notice how when I move to the next one, my mouth gets smaller. E, E, Ö, Ö, Ü, Ü. Okay. Our final letter is another unusual one. This is SZ, and eagle-eyed viewers among you may notice that this is made up of two letters. This one letter is made up of two letters. We have S and Z, which is S and Z. Really, this is what we might call a double S. Sometimes in German, it's also referred to as a scharfes S. Scharfes S. A sharp S. Oh, sorry, scharfes S is spelled this way. Scharfes S, yeah? Okay. Because this one's a little bit tricky, not in its pronunciation, because it is always pronounced like an S, but it's a little tricky in when we use it and when we would just write two S's instead. So what we'll do is we'll save that one to the very end, and then we'll talk about it then. Okay. Okay, so now let's take a look at some letters and combinations and using them in some words. So we're only going to focus on the letters that are different to English in pronunciation so that we can focus in on the bits that are tricky. The other letters that I talked about that are the same as English, you shouldn't really have any trouble with those at all, to be honest. Okay, so this is E, one of our umlaut letters. Again, remember what I said, that all the vowels in German have short and long versions. And sometimes the long version can be recognized by the letter H after it. Unfortunately, there are times when there is no letter H and you just need to know that a vowel is in its long form. To be honest with you, overall, this is not really a very tricky thing to do. As an English speaker, you will be able to pick up on this relatively quickly because in English, we stress our words and parts of our words when we speak, and the same thing happens in German. So you should find that after some time, this becomes quite natural to you. Okay, so in the first word, the E is short, and this word, the first word means men, the plural of man, men, die Männer, die Männer. So it almost sounds like this, right? It sounds like the German E almost, die Männer, die Männer. And it's very short. Notice I'm only just hitting the vowel for a split second. Männer, Männer. Whereas in the second one, this word means currency, as in money. Currency. This one has the long E in it. Die Währung. Die Währung. Die Währung. And it's nice and long. Die Währung. Okay. Actually, as well, I should mention, when an R comes after a vowel sound, it's not pronounced in its normal form, but it becomes very, very soft to the point where you almost don't hear it. Die Währung. Die Währung. It's actually just bridging the sound between these two vowels. Die Währung. Die Währung. Okay. Next up, we have Ö, and it's got a short form and a long form as well. The first word you see here with Ö is the body, like the human body. Der Körper. Der Körper. Der Körper. Körper. So it's nice and short. Again, this little R is almost not heard. It's a little bit like in British English, right? In Irish English, this word here, I would pronounce as car. with a hard sort of R sound on the end. But if you meet someone who speaks English from England, that person's from England, you might hear them say ka, ka. You don't really hear the R on the end, but rather a long vowel sound. And that can be the same in German. So it's Körper, Körper. The R is almost not heard. It's sort of enveloped into the end of the vowel sound. Der Körper. Next, we have a nice long Ö for us. Unfortunately, there's no letter H to tell us that it's long, but this is the word for oil in German. Das Öl. Öl. Notice that it's longer than the Ö in Körper. In Körper, it's just a split second when I say that O, but when I say Öl, it's got 2 beats, right, instead of 1. Das Öl. So, der Körper, das Öl, Öl. There's 2 beats in there. Das Öl. Okay, and then with Ü, again, short and long. The first one means piece, like a piece of something. Das Stück. Das Stück. And it's nice and short here. The next one, it's going to be long. Again, unfortunately, there's no H to tell us that it's going to be long. We just have to learn it as it is. And the second word means door, like your front door, your living room door. Die Tür, die Tür, die Tür. So nice and long. Short, das Stück, die Tür, U or Ü. One is short, one is long. Okay, let's take a look at some other letters then. Oh yes, so this is the word that I was saying earlier here with G. Genug. This is the word for enough in German. Genug. So remember, G is always going to be a hard sound. G, 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 g. Genug. And then at the end, it almost sounds like I'm saying K, right? Genug. So if it's at the end of a word, it's going to be even harder, even sharper. And at the start of the word, a g, g sound. Then we have yacht. Remember how to pronounce this one? It's pronounced like the letter Y in English. So this, die Jacke, is a jacket. Die Jacke, die Jacke, die Jacke. One thing to bear in mind, as English speakers, our brain will tell us, don't pronounce that E on the end, it is silent. However, in German, there is no such thing as a silent letter. We pronounce everything as it's written. And actually, that's one of the things that makes German so wonderful compared to English. Everything is spelt as it's pronounced. Die Jacke, die Jacke. So we pronounce that E on the end, die Jacke. Next up, we have our R again. So the first R in this word is going to be the one that we talked about, where we undulate our uvulas. And the second one, because it comes after a vowel, is going to get a little bit enveloped into the vowel and not fully pronounced. This word means the pipe, as in a pipe you would have in your house, like a water pipe. Das Rohr, das Rohr. Das Rohr. Rohr. So again, you hear the first R clearly, the second R not so much. Following that, yes, we talked about the S already. This is the word for sun in German, die Sonne. So if S is at the start of a word, it's going to make almost like a Z sound in English. Die Sonne, die Sonne. Otherwise, if it's anywhere else in a word, it's going to make a normal S sound, just like in English. Then we come back to vowel, the letter V in German, and it's pronounced, if you can remember, like letter F in English. So this is der Vogel. Vogel. Vogel is a bird. Der Vogel. Next, we have V, which is our W in German, which I think everybody knows is pronounced as a V in English. This word means whale, as in the animal, and der Wal. der Wal, der Wal, Wal. Good. On to Z. This is our ts sound again, our ts sound. Der Zement, der Zement. And that means cement. Okay. Then we come into some combinations of letters. So AI together makes an I sound. I. Here we have in May, which is pronounced im Mai. Im Mai. AU, when it comes together, makes an ow sound. Ow. Ow. Like you've just dropped a can of baked beans on your toe. British reference. Ow. Die Augen. Die Augen. Die Augen. The eyes. Die Augen. Yeah. CH. CH has two different pronunciations depending on what vowels precede it. So the first pronunciation I'd like to call the hissing cat pronunciation. So the word I give you here, this is a pronoun. It means I or myself, and we pronounce it as ich, ich, ich. And this is the hissing cat. You know when two cats get out onto the street and then they arch their back and they hiss at each other? That's the sound that you're making here. Ich, ich. So when CH is followed by A, I, A mit Umlaut, O mit Umlaut, U mit Umlaut, we make this hissing sound. If it's followed by A, O, U, then what we're doing is we're making the let's clear my throat sound. This word means also or as well or to, T-O-O, and it's pronounced auch, auch, auch. So here we're making a sound. The first one, the hissing cat, the second one, so after AOU, the clearing your throat, what might be called the stereotypical German sound. If you know the word loch in Scottish English, loch is got the same sound at the end. Loch. Okay, EI. Actually, do you know what? Let's put EI and IE together, and we'll look at EU just in a second. Let's. Okay, so EI. How do we work out how to pronounce this, and how do we remember how to pronounce it? I haven't found a very good rule that works for us to remember how to pronounce it overall. However, what I have come up with, which I think helps for English speakers, is if we think about the English pronunciation of how we say this letter, I, that helps us a great deal. So if it's EI, then it's pronounced I overall. So here we have the word das Ei, which means the egg. Das Ei, das Ei. So if I is second, EI makes I. If E is second, then it makes an E sound. So if I comes after E, it's I. If E comes after I, it's E. And then V, which is the German word for how. V. Okay, so I and E. I and E. Okay, then we come to EU. EU, or EU in German, is pronounced oi. Oi, like oi mate, come over here. Oi. And the word Deutsch has that word in it. Deutsch, which is either the adjective for German or the name of the language. German, Deutsch. Next up, we have possibly my favorite sound in German, which is The PF together makes a pf sound. And what you're doing here is you're starting like you're going to say the letter F. But when we say F, we start with our lips open. So what you do is you go into that position to say the letter F and you close your lips and you blow out the F. So there's a little pop. And the word here, der Pfad, is the path. Der Pfad, der Pfad. Notice actually that D, when it's at the end of a word, can sound a little bit like T. Der Pfad, der Pfad. Next up we have QU, which I mentioned that in German we pronounce like KV in English. This word is an excellent word. Jellyfish. Die Qualle. Die Qualle. Die Qualle. So, die Qualle. SCH is pronounced almost the same as SH in English, but more air will escape from your lips when you say SCH in German. This is die Schule. Die Schule. The school. Die Schule. Notice if we say something like ship or sheep in English, ship or sheep, some air gets through, certainly, but die Schule, I'm letting a lot more air through my mouth when I say the SCH in German. Die Schule. If you pronounce it like the English SH, though, I don't think you'll run into any problems. Okay. The last two that we're going to look at before we take a look at the SZ again are the combinations of SP and ST. Now, I've grouped them together because there's something similar going on with both of them. So when S is followed by a P or a T, what happens is we get almost like a little H sound in there. So in English, we would say sp and st, but in German, this is sp and st, sp, st. So here, this is the word for game, the game, das Spiel, Spiel, das Spiel. And then st sound, we have der Stern, the star, der Stern. Okay. I think those are all the sounds that are a little tricky and a little different to English that you need to pay particular attention to. The last thing we're going to take a look at is that S set again. So when I was going through the alphabet, I mentioned to you that the S set is used and there's a rule on when it's used. And basically the rule is when it follows a long vowel or a combination of vowels, we find this S set. If there's a short vowel, then two S's are used instead to spell the word. So take a look at the two words we have here as an example. So in the first one, this U is long, der Fuß, der Fuß, der Fuß. And we have our SZ on the end, and we pronounce it like it's two S's, der Fuß. In the next one, we have a short vowel sound, der Biss, der Biss. And it's spelt with two S's. So long vowel or combination of vowels is equals to SZ with spelling, and short vowels equals to double S. So that's why sometimes you might see an SZ and why sometimes you might see a double S. I think it's good to know this rule so that you can remember when you need to use double S or SZ when spelling, because that can really be quite tricky and can throw people off. And even though German's wonderfully phonetic, sometimes you might mix up whether to put an SZ or a double S. So I would also say try to remember this rule as well. Okay, and that's the end of our alphabet video for today. So if you find that this was useful, feel free to leave a like on the video. If you have any questions or comments, write them down in the comment section below. And please do subscribe to the channel so that we can reach more learners of German and help them along their way too. Thank you very much und bis zum nächsten Mal. See you next time. Tschüss.